TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Friday Morning Digest. Thank you for joining us this morning as we discuss engaging the community. And we have a special guest today who is doing a lot of work in the community. And we just want to engage with him about transformation of communities. How do we engage? How do we become a part of or agents of transformation? A few weeks ago, we talked to Bishop Michuki and we talked about becoming an agent of transformation. And we're really continuing this journey. But look at the next generation and how this works for the next generation. So please like, please subscribe, please ask questions, share with your friends out there, get them to be a part of this conversation, and let's all learn together. Bwana Gideon.
Thank you so much, Pastor Arnold. My name is Gideon Gishamba. We'll be co-hosting this show with Rev here, and we have our guest today. And without much ado, let me invite him to introduce himself. Zach, karibu.
Asante Gideon.
Yeah, so you can just tell our viewers who you are and how your journey has been to this place.
Well, first let me say thank you very much for having me to be part of this conversation and to continue to share what we have experienced in the community. I'm Zach Usogonji, as you have said, and I've grown up in Kenya, the better part of my life, and I've really enjoyed being a Kenyan. I think it's, the beauty of being here is you have freedom to do what you want and continue to grow yourself. So I have been very grateful to be a Kenyan. And I'm a father as well of 2 girls, very wonderful girls. They give me reason and hope to keep going. And then I lead a lot of initiatives, community initiatives and engagements. I'm a development.
Umeruka wife ama?
Yes, that's, you know, when you talk about 2 beautiful girls and you talk about them with passion, there is someone behind.
We wanted you to mention that.
Yes, that's yes, I have a beautiful wife and she's always very supportive of my mission. And then I work in the community. I've started a lot of community initiatives in the beginning since 2013, working from one project with women, with young people, and up to now, I still work on that because I've now trained as development specialist. My work is really to transition people from less desirable place to better desirable state, as communities, as individuals, as families. So when I'm engaging with anybody, it's about how can they transform from where they are to a better place. And I think I found purpose in that. That gives me a lot of reason to keep going. And working in the community gives me a lot of reasons to keep going. So we'll be talking a bit later, a lot more about Inua Village to Global Foundation, which is currently the initiative and the organization I'm running. And I really enjoy also being a spiritual person. Okay. That's the last bit of my introduction, now that you said. I enjoy being a very spiritual person because faith has moved me from a place that I didn't really know what my future will be like to a place where I am today, where I think I understand better. And God is there guiding me. You know, so I really appreciate that with faith, I can really do much and a lot of things. So that's me in a nutshell.
I know you are doing this wonderful work in the village, particularly Vihiga and Kakamega. Was this always your dream? You know, in high school, when everyone wants to become a pilot, were you saying I want to become someone who is moving people from less desirable state
to a better desirable state? Oh, yes, that's a very interesting question. I want to be honest. In high school, I didn't know what I wanted to become. You know, what really opened up my eyes a bit in 2005 was growing up in the village, everybody's the same. And you don't know neighbors who are successful or who are not, because even those kids who come from seemingly well-up families, you just be with them playing and everything will be fine. But when I came to the city, I think that's when the first time it hit me that there were rich people and there were poor people. You know, these classes were different, because I could spend time in Korogocho. That time my father used to live in Korogocho. And then during weekends, I would walk around and go through the Madare Valley and come all the way to Mudaiga and just compare the two places, and I got a sense of what it means to have these different social classes. And I think when I transitioned out of high school, I was not very clear on what I wanted to do. So I was hyped up. I wanted to be an engineer, and you want to be everything, of course, at that time. So I did diploma in mechanical engineering. Okay. And then when I finished, something happened. I was led by a friend to go to Naivasha to do a course, to do a post-diploma attachment, and I didn't like it. The 3 months I was there, it felt strange and lonely, because we were in Olkaria, inside the bush. Everything was fine. We were well supported. The company was very good. But at the end of the day, you find you finished the work, so you're just lying around. I felt I wanted to connect with people. That's the first time I discovered that I'm a people person. I want to see people smiling, people engaging, and I want to see that transformation. So when I came back after my diploma, is when I really took a different trajectory. I sold a motorbike I had bought and then started my first community-based organization. I invited a few friends from college that we were with. Then we started the first community-based organization. That was in May 2013. STARS Mentor Initiative. The aim was we go to schools, we mentor students so they don't make the same mistake I had made. I studied something and then I wanted to do something else different. So that's how now my engagement with the community actually started. And after 2 months or 3 months or 1 year of working in the community, I realized I like it. I was happy. I was coming home in the evening without anything, but I had talked to 10 women. I had shared with them something on the kiosks. I had talked to young people, and I was feeling satisfied. And at that moment is when I asked myself, how can I make this balance out, what I really love doing, plus a career that I can build out of this. So I looked for ways. I went back to university to now study development studies degree. So that's how I ended up being in the development space.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
I think when he was asking you that question about, was this always in your heart? My question is, what drives you? You know, what motivates you to pursue this community engagement? Yeah.
In the beginning, it starts with yourself, really. You are thinking about yourself more. How do you beat this? How do you beat that? And then something strange happens. You do one thing that you see transforming someone's life and giving them an opportunity. And you realize, oh, it's not about me. It is actually helping others. And even before I fully got into this work, I was just helping people get sponsorships to go through high school or to do something. And then a short while you realize this person you helped to get sponsorship has actually finished high school, and this other one has actually gotten an opportunity to progress. So when you see the transformation of one person and then another, you want to do more of it. You want to have more people get supported. I wouldn't lie that you have clarity of everything in the beginning and you understand what's driving you, but I think every day I wake up, I receive messages of students, some I helped some time back, and they say, you helped me enough. I'm graduating this coming week. I'm happy I'm able to start work. I'm just calling to say thank you for what you did for me, and for me such gives me a lot of hope. But even more importantly is when you are alone, when you are a candle that is just trying to shine alone in darkness, you might be making a change, but it's lonely change. And I feel when other candles are cheering you up and they are bringing in more light, becomes a cheerful place. You know, so when I'm in the rural areas like where we are working, and I see 14 or 15 families, all of them have someone who is going through high school and they have an opportunity to transition. I know in another 5 years, 10 years, those households will have someone like me who can also bring change in those households. And I think it's like that I feel gives me the reason to keep going.
Okay. Maybe you can share with us some of your success stories. What are the successes and also the challenges? Because I don't think it's always rosy. I think there's some challenges in the middle of this. So maybe you can share with us both.
Yeah, and maybe in addition to that, what have been your highest moments, you know?
Yeah. Yes, those are very wonderful questions, because sometimes I think when you are so drowned into it, you never stop to think, this is a high moment or this is a low moment.
Yeah.
You're just focused on it. But I think I'll start with Pastor Arnold's question, that what have been the things we've considered successful. Starting Inua Village to Global Foundation in 2017, mid, was a very difficult moment for me, because at that time I was about to graduate from university. I had lost a number of projects we were doing before that time, and I was thinking, now I'm graduating, I need to look for a job because I have experience and I have the degree and the paper, so I should just go and find a job. And then the opportunity to start the organization came, and starting very small, with just scholarships for students, you pair them up with sponsorships, and then they get support and they go through high school. And then we started our first school, very small. Our father actually gave us a small piece of land, said build a room here, so we're just to give porridge to kids. Then it quickly transitioned into a school, and having, as we sit here now, 850 learners.
Wow, nice.
In our 3 centers, in Soweto, in Likuyani sub-county in Kakamega, and in Emuhaya sub-county, is for me a big success, because as we speak, they are seated in class, they will have a cup of porridge, they will have lunch, they will have someone attending to them. We have designed a program that is transforming families, because Inua Village Foundation has Inua Village schools. And in the schools is very interesting. There is learning, and then there is an outreach program where we have a social worker who visits all the families to understand where the kids are coming from. And all our teachers, thank you to all of them, I know some of them are watching, they visit the families at home. They don't just engage with the kids in the school. They go home and see, where are you coming from? They know who is living with the grandmother, whose house is falling apart, who is having gender-based violence, who is doing child labor, who is a child leading their family. They know all these things. So they appreciate when they see the kid in class, and they start to support them from that point. I think for me that's also a big success, that we can intervene and try to solve the problems that learners face, not just when they are in our faces, but we can understand them from the point where they are coming from, and the obstacles and the challenges they have to go around before they finally class. And I feel that is transformational, because then it helps us appreciate who we are and what our communities are and what the issues are. So we have had that number, and in 2019 we started groups for women, especially parents in our schools, just a discussion how we can be able to assist, because we had 1 or 2 donations or 3 donations coming in, and people wanted specifically asking, how can we help the families become sustainable, become self-reliant. So we started discussions, and we brought these parents together in small groups, and eventually they started to save 50 shillings, small bit by bit. And I'm happy to say that March this year, we got the certificate for Inua Village Savings and Credit Cooperative that is now having 250 members.
Wow. Nice.
These are parents and our workers, people who work within Inua Village to Global Foundation, and friends. And we've been able to mobilize close to 1.5 million shillings in the last 2-3 years. We've given out credit, we've been able to support these households to buy a cow, to buy a goat, to plant, cultivate their farms. And I think that is also something that I consider to be a very great moment, that shows with the small mobilizations we can do locally, and we set the proper infrastructure, we can really transform the communities that we have. And then lastly, we've also scaled up our Inua Village textile. It's a small department. The whole concept was we were buying uniforms from Nairobi. and then taking them to the villages. So we asked, what can we really do? Because it's not helping these communities. So in a small way, we started sewing, and we've transformed that into a company now, a textile company, that is now seeking to do clothings and fashions and other things in the western region, and to create employment for the parents, because parents need to have income to spend so they can pay for their kids' education. And that's things that we consider to have been very great successes. At an individual level, at household level, every family has had something from us that we have engaged, whether it's spiritual, whether it is just inspiration that we can do it. We've also fought in terms of now challenges. In the communities, there are a lot of issues. So when people see you making this transformation, they'll say you have majini, or you have the stereotypes, of course. We always, of course, counter that by ensuring that we communicate and bring them into a space where we can have conversations and they can understand that we can make these changes. It's normal for people to, change their lives and become better. So that the stereotypes within the communities around poverty and witchcraft and how people relate to success, they are still deeply rooted. There are also issues with, when you are going there, the infrastructure is a little bit underdeveloped. So you'll find that's why we are still stuck here in Nairobi. We'll have completely moved. Okay. The things that I can move here in Nairobi within an hour, it will take me a day or two to move the same things in places like Vihiga or Likuyani. So there are still those challenges of infrastructure not being very fully developed, like internet and communication and transport, and a lot of opportunities are here in Nairobi. And I think this is something that perhaps at the end of this conversation, I will have helped people see that there are reasons they need to invest in organizations that are intervening in the villages.
Okay.
So the challenges that we really see are those, and of course, always lack of income, because you really want to do projects, but people cannot be able to pay for some of the services, so that becomes a bit difficult. But if there are no challenges, there's no reason for us to exist. So we take them with courage, faith, and we pray to God, and we invite people to engage, and discuss the issues, and we find solutions most of the time, and we move over. And once we look back, what we thought was a big challenge that will kill us, it looks small. So the new challenge looks big and difficult. So we've learned. The highest moments have been for me when I attend graduations for the pre-primary 2. That is grade, pre-unit 2, when they are going to grade 1. When I'm there and dancing with them and seeing them transition to start life, I just feel, oh, wow, because for me it's just about the foundation we give the kids. If the kids in the city, the parents can die with them, give everything to pay, to ensure that they access the best, every child deserves that. So when I sing with them and dance with them as I usher them into grade 1, I feel very nice.
Wow. Awesome.
Excellent.
So in this your engagement with the community, how do you advance God's kingdom?
Wow, nice question. Like I've said, I'm a believer in God and His doings. And when you're in the community, there is, of course, one challenge I didn't mention. There is always the silent war between different denominations and churches, and people wanting to not relate to you because maybe you belong to that denomination. But I think development work cuts across. Whether you're in this denomination or in that denomination, the people you serve want to feel appreciated, want to feel acknowledged, and that they are having opportunities. So when we are there, in the schools, we have been very deliberate. There is a PPI that happens every Friday. We have a chaplain in each school. We make sure that the children get the opportunity to exercise their Christianity and faith and grow in it, because our value system is based on religion. So it's important that children get exposed to that and experience it also. But at a personal level, we try, and in the organization level, we build a culture where we encourage people to pray. We always pray in the mornings, in the evenings, when we are having meetings. We make sure that there is a conversation, that there is power that is beyond us, you know. So when we go in the communities, when we are doing our outreach and we are visiting families and we find our families in distress, I've seen many times that we just prayed with the family. There was really nothing we could do, but we just say, okay, we've listened to everything, but let us pray. And I have seen many, even among my staff, calling and saying, since you prayed with me, things have been fine. So I think how we carry ourselves, how we conduct ourselves in terms of our work, and then doing the actual work, because Jesus Christ didn't just teach. He went an extra mile, offered bread when it was necessary. Bringing just bread alone and not praying and teaching spiritually and engaging with these people with love, with humility, doesn't really help. But also just coming and preaching and talking to them spiritually, but also not offering real solutions to the challenges they face also doesn't help. So I think we need to find a balance where these things come together and agree.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, one of the challenges I hear, many people who are engaged at community level engagement, whether it's structured or unstructured. You know, sometimes you may be somebody in Nairobi, you want to go to a community and just help without any structure. But one of the big things I hear is politics. Because anytime you begin to engage with the community and you want to look like you want to provide hope, you want to provide a solution, the people begin to say you want to be the next MP, you want to be the next MCA, maybe even you look like governor, maybe the next governor, you know. So how has politics affected that engagement? And the national politics right now, in terms of just the push towards the next government, the push towards the next administration for the country, is that affecting you guys?
Well, there is nothing you can do that politics in this country that don't affect, even if you're just hiding under your bed. Politics is affecting you. So, of course, people must engage in political discourses and they must engage in it in a way that is informed. And I think that's partly our role as leaders, as organizations that work in the community, to help people participate in this conversation in a way that is helpful for their own well-being. Yes, of course, people have said, yeah, Zach, what are you vying? Are you vying for MCA or vying for governor? People will think that the only way, and this is the notion I really fight and I want to make it clear, we have put a lot of premium on politics. And we have ignored people who are transforming this country in many other ways. People like Mwangi of Equity is doing a lot of transformation without necessarily being a governor or president. So there are people in the business field, there are people in social field, there are people in political field that are contributing with equal measure. It doesn't mean that if I'm doing this work the way I'm doing it, the only way I can then do it much better is joining politics. It's a notion, it's a feeling that sometimes get into our heads as young leaders. When you just become popular because of something you've done, the next thing then you are vying. I honestly feel sometimes that space is a little bit limiting. For example, if I was to vie for Member of Parliament, there's a notion that comes with my people in my community that this is government money and I deserve to give it to them. But a procurement process in a CDF program is very complicated. It's not easy. You know, the things that I can move that my MP will have to wait that process, if I had resources and ability, will be 2 or 3 times more efficient and much faster to help the people compared to him who has actually to follow certain procedures and protocols and to make sure that that is done. So I feel when you go in that space sometimes, people jump in thinking that they'll be able to do more, but because of just the mechanics around the laws and the procedures, that's when people get frustrated that you are doing a lot of things before you joined politics, now you've joined politics, you are not helping us. People fail to understand that in politics and being a member of parliament or a governor, there are laws and there are processes, there are procedures that you have to follow.
And you are bound.
And you are bound by them. And you cannot, and some things are really beyond them, because I was listening to the Chief Justice speak the other day and she said, sometimes they get their budget 2 months to the end of the financial year. You know, so what can you do in 2 months? The money goes back. Counties go through the same thing. They receive money just 3 months to the end of the financial year. So you really can't do much in that period. But people will just say, our governor returned the money to the treasury. You know, really without really understanding.
We were voting him out.
Yes, we are voting him out,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So I think we need to appreciate what our politicians are doing and what they are able to do to move. But we also need to create and add premium to other opportunities that are there for people to intervene. So I don't have necessarily to feel that I have to go into politics to then be a leader. I am already a leader where I am, and I'm transforming what is happening. So at local level, people need to engage in politics, and people need to ensure that they shape who becomes their leader, because then they make policies, they make laws, they make decisions that influence our day-to-day lives. So we cannot then just leave it. The church must be involved, the people who are working in the community like us must be involved. And I really want to thank a program I attended in 2017. It's called Political Leadership and Governance Program. It was led by Frederick Ebert Stiftung. And it taught us how all of us, we can never leave politics to politicians alone. We need to be engaged and we need to be involved. And I think such programs are also very, very helpful to help leaders appreciate the space you occupy is just as important as the one who is in politics. So the terrain is going on in terms of people engaging and politics are shaping up. But what is my space? You know, so I wouldn't be in a place where then I want to use my school as a political tool or invite people of this faction into my school, because then it divides the community. And this should be a place of shelter. It should be a place that unites them to have balanced conversations. So it's a challenge for us to balance. And I have had many calls from even politicians who think the way I build a house for a family through our work is because I want to vie.
Okay.
And I make sure I clarify that we are not politically driven. At the moment, we are not interested in politics. We are just interested in helping you. You have done one house, we have done one house. Those are two houses. You see, so if I take your seat, I can only do one house, which is yours, the one you have done. So we look at it that way, and they need to appreciate that we as also leaders who are not necessarily in politics, we also have a role to play, and we are not competing with them. We are actually complementing their effort. Yes.
Okay. As the current political space, you know, in terms of campaigns, has it affected you in any way? Has it affected your programs in any way?
It has immensely, because as politics is coming in, there are a lot of things that happen. One of it is generally what we are seeing. There is no money. I think it disappears, God knows to where. And when you go in the communities, people are very hungry. People are very disillusioned. So anybody that shows up is, what can you give? What can you do now? You know, there's a lot of hunger, a lot of struggle, a lot of challenges. So people are desperate and sitting on the edge. So you find the resources we have are not sufficient in terms of dealing with some of the needs. But also, it's a very good time because everybody is active. Politicians have a way of bringing everybody from their shadows. So there is a lot of engagement. We've also had a lot of conversations with people who are willing to understand what we are doing and how they can support. So there's both good and bad, but it all depends with how are we engaging in this particular conversation. And I don't shy away from talking about politics, which side I support and why, when I'm with my workers, when we are in our working spaces, because they have to know, even me, I have a choice, and this is why I have the choice. And even them, I respect their choice and what they have. What I will do as a leader, I'll just make sure that I share my thoughts about why I'm supporting this faction and not the other faction. Because sometimes we tend to be, want to be neutral. And I lead in church also. And we tend not to say this is what we support, because our followers will be, I'm taking sides. I don't think that's also a good place to be. As a leader, you need to be able to communicate and say, as much as we don't influence you who you want to choose, but this is what my decision is and where I think my support is. And that way they just know that you're a human being, and you also get affected by these things, and they are important to you as they are important to them. Yes.
Okay, I was actually thinking you're an angel. Could be a human being.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, allow us to take a break at that point. Thank you for joining us on this conversation. Please remember to just invite your friends as we continue. We want to take a break for a few minutes and we'll be back. Don't touch that dial.
The National Prayer Committee welcomes you to the climax of the National Peace Prayer Caravan that has traversed across all the 47 counties, uniting believers of all walks of life in fervent prayer for the nation. The one-day National Solemn Assembly Prayer Meeting will be on Saturday 28th May from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Kasarani Stadium. Come and let us plead for God's mercy on our beloved nation.
Wow, welcome. For a number of years, we've always gathered men. And this is another special year, 2022. I'm inviting you to the Gathering of Men Conference 2022. We'll be having meetings from 27th of May, which is a Friday, and then on 28th, which is a Saturday, but early in the morning. 28th on Saturday, we just gather from 7 in the morning all the way to 10 in the morning for men, because men, you want to arise and wake up and be able to be on the run early in the morning. And of course, on the Sunday 29th, we're going to have a great time on Sunday in the afternoon, from 2:30 o'clock all the way to 5 o'clock. It's going to be a great gathering. Listen, men everywhere in the body of Christ must be awakened and must be activated to take their place in the church, in the nation, and above all, men must be able to take their position in the family.
Welcome to this year's Gathering of Men's Conference 2022. You will be equipped, you will be strengthened, and you will be challenged as a man who is the leader of the family. See you there.
In this conference, you'll be built all around. So I urge you to come and let us be made to be men who makes great exploits.
From all churches, let's gather at the Apostolic House, and your life will never be the same again.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. We're having a great conversation today with Bwana Zach Ogonji, and we were just talking about the political space. I don't know, how does that sound to you, Gideon?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we are talking about grassroots and the politics at the grassroots, but we don't live in a vacuum. So, could you just share with us your thoughts around the Madharau? Is it Madharau or the Rigathi? There are those two tickets. Some people have called it Madharau, others have called it Rarua, others have called it whatever it is.
I like the shenanigans online. I think there's a bigger war that is being fought online by both parties.
Yeah.
That is shielded from our eyes. A lot of things we see flying. It's a well orchestrated war between this side versus this side, and who outdoes the other. So when someone comes up with a nice policy on this side, inapakwa matope na hii side ingine, there's that, and I think that's an interesting space to be in. Sometimes you can really get lost in it and get lost in the conversation. I really like the choice of the deputy presidents. I think we've come a long way, because we have lived in this country when a vice president will be thrown out of the window or over a cup of tea and nobody will really care. Life will move on. But it has come to a place where there is a conversation around it. And I like both tickets because they, you know, when Jesus starts his ministry, the first task he does is to call the people he will work with. And when you read that story, it's very interesting how he picks these men, you know, and he mixes them up. And I think the first call for a leader is to put together a team that will work with him to achieve the vision. Because then you acknowledge that you alone can't do it. You see? So Kenyans should be judging the teams. Especially if you are Christian, look at how Jesus put together his team of the 12 disciples and how he continued to organize them to help him achieve his ministry. Look at how these two political sides are putting together their teams and who is in the team and what do they stand for. What has been their work before? Because if you read the scriptures, and I'll talk a bit about that, because even the disciples, we are told what they used to do before. Okay? Fisherman, he was this, he was that, he was that. The Bible is very clear even when they're talking about Zacchaeus, the tax collector. They vividly explain what he used to do. Because then you cannot transition into another phase and say, Jesus, I want you to help me to become a better person, without us reviewing what you have done and you willingly stopping those and transitioning forward. So for me, it's not just an issue of picking Karua or picking Rigathi. It's an issue of how are you assembling your team that will help you deliver on the things that you are promising. And we are looking at, can they be trusted? What's their track record? What have they done before? Where are they coming from? And I like it when I see online people looking at Rigathi Gachagua from 1990, what he did as a deal. In the US, they go up to when you were in high school. You know, if you beat up someone in high school, it will come up, and people must question from that basis. Can you be trusted? We have seen people step down because they beat someone, because they, they behaved funny with women and such like, and completely step down. And I think that's where chapter 6 really comes in, and it's a chapter in our constitution that just keep being thrown left, right, and center. But I think it's just a straightforward issue. What do we agree with that defines us? And when you do it, I won't frown. You see? So when we see leaders doing things that make us frown, but then pretend we have not frowned, for me, that's the problem. You see? So I think when I look at Martha Karua, and we were just discussing with a friend, and I said, I haven't seen her scandal. Okay. There is one, of course, I know that has been around her, but it was cleared. You know, so what's her house? Because we examine people in terms of this country, in terms of material ownership. Have we seen her house printed all over that she owns this, she owns that piece of land, she owns this? If it haven't come up to now, it means there's nothing to be put out there, and we have good teams online that do those research. It's the issue of credibility for me. But then also in the rural areas, when I work there in the community, women have been left behind, to be honest. I have worked with many women, and in my organization, I make it deliberate to mainstream women. But women have challenges of credibility and being trust that we can do it. Even they don't believe in themselves. The self-esteem issue. So when we see one woman rising consistently to the top, it gives a lot of women hope. It gives a lot of young girls a belief that even them can do it. Not that women haven't done it, they have. But in this particular space, we have seen women actively involved, but they just die somewhere. So I think it is a statement, and I have seen for the first time my mom actively involved in politics. Even a lot of ladies that I know who had said they will not vote before, they have said, we will vote. So I think for me that's very, very important, that women find their space, start to contribute, because President Obama said when he was here, if you are playing without women, it's like you feel that you have gone into a game with half of your team. The other half is seated outside. So we need to deliberately involve women in development issues. And when you are a leader, empower women to be able to speak up. Don't be this person who just brings in women on the table to be seen, but then when it comes to actual contribution, they either open with a word of prayer and close with a word of prayer. That's not the contribution. And we must deliberately identify who is not speaking in the room, who is not contributing in the room, and what can they contribute, what can they say. Because we are coming from a history where women have, one man can fill the whole room that is full of 100 women. If we recognize that men have been advantaged and their presence takes over, we deliberately start to lift the women voices. So for me, it's not just about saying we will have 50% of women. I will look at the women. And at that point, I just want to close by saying, women who are from the grassroots, who are doing real change, who are transforming the communities and the things that are happening in the society should be on the table. Because we have seen a tendency in the past where women are just picked up here, who sometimes don't really represent the issue. They actually, sorry to say, women who are more aligned to the men, who are in power. And then they end up just perpetuating the agenda for the men rather than supporting the agenda for women.
You know, okay, now that you've opened that can of worms, and I'll not focus on the political angle, but one of the things I've noticed in the last, I think, 1 year, 1.5 years, because since Martha, the Chief Justice is called Martha, one of the Vice President, one of the running mates is called Martha. I'm just thinking maybe I should have called my daughter Martha. It looks like women are actually coming out in this season. Is that an observation you made? Because one of the concerns I also hear, which is the other side, is the issue of the boy child that has been neglected. But is that an observation that you've made, that women are actually coming out, women are actually rising to a place of prominence? And whether intentional or not, there's really something happening where women are concerned. And I would like you to answer that from where you are, from where you sit, from the space you occupy. Yeah.
Women are coming up, but men are not letting them. And that we have to be very clear, because for women to come up and for us to fully say women have come up, they must be contributing. So you will find when we give a woman minister, below her there will be 2 or 3 men who are PS and others who are more powerful than the woman on top. And you find that becomes an issue. So for me, where I sit, we don't want just women to rise in the name of we want to see them, but we want them to actively contribute. And I like it that these women you have mentioned have been around the scene since 1995, mid-1990s, and they have worked consistently up to where we are. What we need to ask ourselves is, are we empowering the next generation of women, and how many are they? And it's not by default that even when you look across these women who are making it to the top, there is still a very sharp contrast that there are more urban women than rural women. Okay. And this just goes to the opportunities that are available to girls and women across the country in terms of spaces to speak. And that's where I think, from where I sit, we need to start to organize at the grassroots level, that we have forums that actively engage women and empower women to speak about different topics, different subjects, engage with these discussions, that women must start to dissect issues that are relating to politics, social development, economics, in a way that enables and empowers them to be able to start to contribute to the development of the country. The challenge that we have is women must, and actually it's true, women move less in the country. Women who move from the rural areas to Nairobi or to other urban centers, they are fewer than compared to men. Men are more mobile. So sometimes we will make an argument that the boy child is being left behind, which maybe is true, or maybe it's just a way of men countering that. The truth is, the way I have observed it, in a class of a standard 7 of 30 girls and 1 boy, the 1 boy will still be more powerful than the 30 girls.
Okay.
His voice and his stature will overwhelm the 30. If you don't deliberately start to empower those 30 to also realize that they are important, you will find a space where the boy, even though he's marginalized in space, in words, when you look at it, he's marginalized, but in content, he is influencing what happens in that space compared to the 30 of them. So we start to interrogate what is the contribution of these women we are seeing rising. Because if we have one woman there, one woman there, one woman, but the whole other places is filled by men who are really preservative or conservative to the core, it becomes very, very difficult. But in terms of inspiration and in terms of helping many others to see that they too can rise, I think that has happened.
You've mentioned about the dominance of men in the political space, in all the leadership spaces. We see the dominance of men. What's your feel about women leadership? What if the tables were to flip just for a day, and all the major sectors, major spaces are occupied by men? Inua Village is occupied by women. Sorry, what kind of leadership would that be?
Well, that would be a good place to be, and also a very difficult place to be, because have men accepted that they can be led by women? I think that's the core. And we have many men who still don't believe that women can lead. I've engaged with organizations and projects that have been founded by women, but when they go back home, their man who is never participating is the one who makes decisions. Okay. I have been in the rural areas where women, actually when we call for meetings, even for our circle, even for parents' meetings, 80% of attendants are women. But when they go back home, they don't make decisions. So a woman will get a loan and buy a goat, but the goat will become for the man. And the woman no longer has power to decide what to do with the goat. Those are small things that are still a big bother, that women cannot control capital, are not controlling capital. We need to reach there, that women can control capital. But I don't think that is really a war between men and women from where I sit. And it doesn't mean that now women will be the head of the house, the way we see it in the spiritual space. If all of us recognize that development is something different, and when women are empowered, there are better diets, there are better decisions on health issues, and all those will really help men to surmount some of the challenges that we are facing. I don't think them leading an institution like this takes away what men can do. And what I want to advise, and I've always shared with men, and I think I'll give an analogy, is when there was only national government before 2010, it used to control everything, including washing utensils in your house. But now the county government came over, and there are some functions that were taken away and given to the county government. National government is struggling to still hold on to some of those, but I think they need to look beyond. And there are new things that they need to do. So just men, we need to look beyond. As women grow to fill up the spaces that have been traditionally ours, or it's us who know how to do them, there are new callings that God is giving us to do. Because he has told us to subdue the earth. Have we subdued it in Kenya? There is a lot that we need to do to convert this Kenya into a middle-income country and a developed country. And men need to go beyond now the things that they have considered to be traditionally theirs. And that's why I'm saying, even if they became leaders of IVTG, I will be leading several other organizations, continuing to bring more change. And that's how I see it. It's not that when they come in and take my seat, then I have no seat. Wow. I get an opportunity to create more seats.
Yes, that's an amazing view. I think I need to meet your wife and hear whether from her side. Maybe it's a textbook answer. She'll tell us something different here, but that's amazing. Sure, yes. How about the church? I'm thinking about in all this conversation, when you started off at one point, you talked to us about the churches, everyone, sort of trying to look at you from the aspect of which denomination you belong to. And, we're not engaging because you might not be from this denomination, that's not my denomination. How about the church? What kind of impact has it had in terms of your work? And what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think, especially in the rural areas, you cannot ignore the church and survive. We have a lot of churches there that traditionally have been a source of spiritual nourishment for the people. And when you go there and just assume you will overlook the church, that's where those stereotypes like you are devil worshipper or something like that comes up. But what we've done deliberately as an organization, Inua Village to Global Foundation, is we have worked with churches closely in our community, because I do community entry strategies, and the first places you need to visit when you go to the community is the churches, the religious leaders. Ask them, what are your people saying? What do they think? What is happening? You know, and when you engage at that level, you find that they are dealing with the same issue, only that with the resources and the opportunities they have, they are not able to do as much. So we build deliberate collaboration between church and organizations like ours to meet at a point where spiritually we need people to be nourished. But when it comes to development aspects, when it comes to resourcing them, you can be able to bridge this gap for us. So that way we start to collaborate and work together and to support one another to achieve that goal. I think what I can advise the church is don't get stuck in the pre-colonial.
Okay.
There are churches that are really struggling with finding a space in this new world. A church has ceased to be a place where people come to pray and offer. It has become a place where people come to meet, interact, network, build networks that transcend the spiritual space. That's why we are seeing churches that are aware. They are building platforms and forums that allow people to meet and talk entrepreneurship, share ideas. They are starting circles. They are building up spaces that then encourage people to be able to become independent. They become able to generate income. So if you find a church that is still stuck in a place where the worshippers and the congregants just come, worship God, and then they give a tithe and then they go away, you will find that church struggling to balance. Because people now, the only place you can meet honest people is church at the moment. So when people come to church, they are now looking more than spiritual nourishment. And that's why you will see people are asking, what is Reverend Arnold doing? They want to know that you are engaged. And even if you don't give, but they know you are running this company, or you're working on here, or you are engaged in this work, you inspire them to also do something, because the ministry of God is about work. You know. So if we are in a space where we can use churches as entries and places where people can discuss development, that will be very, very, it will be a big game changer for the churches. And I think the churches in the urban centers are really understanding that concept. They are started to turn their spaces and the places of worship away from just being people gathering on Sunday, but being an opportunity to deliberately bring people together to start to access other opportunities to be able to develop themselves. And I think when you develop your congregation and people are empowered and they have resources, the church doesn't become poor. The church becomes richer. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So how have you managed to circumvent, you know, what's it called, denominational barriers? How have you learned to work around that?
I think we are deliberately doing projects with the churches. So when we have, like recently we had an anti-Jiga event, which is a community-wide. So we will send posters to all the churches, we will visit all the churches and invite them and their pastors and their congregation to come and participate. We are doing one small project for a church. Maybe we are planting trees. Okay. So this time we'll plant a tree on this church, next time we'll plant a tree on the other church. Next time we are having an event, we will invite pastors from across different churches to come and gather with us and to be able to share with us, because even the congregation and the people we have in the community are also coming from different denominations. So if they don't see themselves represented at the pulpit or at the podium, they feel that, why is our pastor left out? You know, so deliberately from where we sit as an organization, we don't want that to happen. So we involve everybody, we communicate, we work with the chief, we work with every local leader, religious, civil, and everybody else. We bring them together, and that way we are able to start a conversation.
Okay. Yeah. Just to appreciate some of the viewers who are following us on this conversation, Sharda Kolopi, it looks like he's following from the IVTG office, Nairobi, and Alexandria Francis, who is following from the main headquarters of Inua Village Global Foundation. That's fantastic. So thank you for joining us in this conversation.
Shouts out, shout out, shout out.
Yes, maybe you want to ask the next question.
Yeah. So about, one of the problems, and we really appreciate the new constitution, was the trickling down of resources. And I know devolution has played a major role in the trickling. But do you think there is more? Do you think there is more to the political landscape? Is there a new methodology, new adjustments that we need to make to ensure that more resources trickle down to the grassroots where you are?
Yeah, partly politicians will tell you we need BBI, but I think from where I sit, we need goodwill.
Okay.
From the politicians, because they will give money. They start to give CDF money before even the law was complete, and CDF money has been increased subsequently without necessarily changing anything, because politicians feel it is important at constituency level to have the resources. I think the goodwill in the leaders, political leaders, will solve a big chunk of that problem. I think now that you've asked me that question, there's always a comment I've made. The people we need to gather and maybe stone them, literally, are people that when money is sent to the counties, in the rural counties, whether governors or other leaders in that space, they steal the money and come back to Karen and buy a house. If we meet such a person, we need to summon them and stone them, because this money is sent to the county to be invested in the counties. So if you steal that money and return it to Nairobi, you are denying the people at the grassroots the opportunity to develop. And what we have seen that is very, very significant is when Vihiga County, for example, does forums in the local hotels. They are very small hotels that I know there in Vihiga. And Vihiga County does a lot of focus group discussions or public engagement in those hotels. There are 10, 15, 20 people working in those spaces, and they have income, and they go back in their communities, and they have power to spend. So the game changer for the counties is when money goes in the counties, even if it's not distributed to the people, but it is spent on projects. It does roads, it does, even if it's those meetings, but you don't move that meeting back to Nairobi. Okay. Do it within the county. If it is in Isiolo, do it in a hotel in Isiolo, because the owner of that hotel will have resources to be able to develop it and make it better the way you like it. There is still a lot of trust issues of saying we don't have local capacity to do this, we don't have local capacity, so you end up hiring people from somewhere else or taking them these resources somewhere. I think that's a wrong notion, because Nairobi started to build to become what it is today in 1940 or even before. So if we don't put these resources in those counties starting now, and deliberately invite young people like me who are running those projects there and tell them, we understand you don't have this capacity, but we are willing to work with you to develop the capacity. Eventually, this will be the big businesses, will be the big investors in those counties that will then drive the change that is needed. So we need to see a lot of collaboration. It's not just about the money. If you have been given 10 shillings and you didn't use it well, what makes you think that when you are given that you will make a change? It's a big problem.
Yeah. So a bit, I want to take a question a bit off. You know, in this country I've observed, politics appear like the ultimate self-actualization. I've seen musicians, they sing, and then they get to a place and think, now I'm done with singing, let me go to politics. You've seen radio presenters, we've seen comedians, they do their thing, then they realize, I'm not doing it anymore, let me join politics. So politics appear like the ultimate self-actualization. What can we do? Because it appears like it's another, it's my next level. You know, once I'm done what I'm doing, my next level, I can only rise to politics. So beyond politics, no more. So what can we do to change those kind of mindsets?
It's an interesting question, and I wouldn't blame anybody to join politics. Like for me, the work I'm doing with IVTG is very, very important to me.
Yeah.
And if it comes to a place where an MCAs in the county are making laws that are affecting what we are doing, I will definitely want to be there to influence how those laws are made, that they don't threaten what we are doing. And I think that's what we are seeing in the country a lot. The institutions of government and the institutions that are supposed to guard the people have turned around and been weaponized against individuals. So when you feel what you are doing is being suffocated, and we have seen this with KRA attacking people's business, we have seen this with people turning around politics and then making it like your business is doing something bad. So you start to see a lot of business people starting to want to be in the politics so that then they can shield their businesses and their enterprise from such attacks. And I think what we just need to call out our politicians and our leaders is to stop weaponizing laws and weaponizing the institutions they lead to attack businesses and to attack people who are making change. Because then you force all these people to want to come into politics. Because look around the musicians and comedians you mentioned, with the MCSK, with all these things around the music rights and the things that they need to get, how much they need to get when they produce a song. It's a low problem. And recently when Honorable Wanga worked closely with the Royal Media Service and everybody else, and they were able to come up with a law that helps these people who are doing skiza tunes to get above 60% as royalties back to them, it changed the landscape for all the musicians. So the thing is, if musicians feel that nobody is speaking, they will want to go there and change that law so that then musicians can benefit. Okay. But is it the right way? Sometimes not. We have seen prominent journalists who have gone in politics and they found it was a swamp. They were not able to change anything. So all of us can't go into that and hope that we will then change the laws from within. Some of us need to remain outside and keep pushing that the system starts to comply. So I think that's really the problem.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Thank you for the discussion. I think this has been an amazing discussion. We're just preparing to wrap it up. So maybe you can give us your final thoughts. Just some parting shot, and maybe we'll pick up this conversation at some other day.
I think first, thank you. It has been
in conjunction to that, speak to that person who wants to engage with community. Where do they begin? Is it on Rosie? Some will think, I don't have money, I don't have enough money to do this. Yes. Tell us you have a lot of money and you can share some with them.
Fantastic. I think first, thank you very much for having the conversation, and I have really enjoyed being here. As I finish and wind up, community work and resources, and people confuse resources with money. I have mobilized many people to just make change without necessarily using money. So if you are the example I give for someone who wants to go into community, what are you passionate about? What do you want to change? What is that one thing you want to change? Let's pick Kwangare Madai, for example. I feel passionate about the environment in my community and I want to change it. What does it mean? Start planting trees in your own compound. Plant them as many until your neighbors start to wonder what is going on. You know? And then eventually your neighbors will start to copy that. And then you start to teach them. And it's easy when you go to KWS and when you go to Kenya Forest Service, they give out free seedlings to people who want to do that kind of work. You know, so you don't need any money to buy your seedlings. You will actually get people giving you seedlings and you will start. And there are people I have seen, they have been honored by even the Queen of Britain by planting over 5 million trees. That's change. You know, so it starts with what you have and what you can do, and then doing it consistently. And don't wait until you have money. Actually, the more you do the work, the more people believe in it and the more people fund it. But if you feel that you will get funding first and then get started, you will never get started. So start small, mobilize with friends, and the resources friends give you, account for it.
Okay.
If you are a wife and your husband gives you 300 shillings to do your initiative, come back in the evening and account for the 300. It gives them confidence to give you 1,000. But if you are given and you don't account for it because it's your father, it's your mother, it's whoever, just know tomorrow nobody will trust you and nobody will give you an extra shilling to do whatever you are doing. In a small way, start to account. And then that way people trust you with even more things. So as we go, I just want to invite you to be engaged in your communities. If you can change something about politics, please change. If you can mobilize anything around environment, please mobilize. If the county government calls for participation in a particular area, go and participate. That way, slowly by slowly, you start to understand what is happening and you start to be the voice. And that way, together, collectively, we can be able to make a change.
Awesome. Just before I ask Gideon to give his parting shot, how do we get in touch with IVTG?
Wow. Thank you very much. IVTG, you can go to Facebook. It's Inua Village to Global Foundation. Our website is www.villagetoglobalfoundation.org. We're also on Instagram as Inua Village to Global Foundation. We are on Twitter at Global TO. And we are doing amazing work on social media. So if you engage us right now, people will be able to respond to you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Gideon, any parting shots?
Thank you so much, people, for being with us throughout the session. I am sure you are challenged just as we've been challenged over here. A young man decides to ditch his engineering, whatever he was doing with his engineering, and decides to pursue a path of transformation, changing lives from a less desirable state to a more desirable state. Thank you. Until next time, God bless you.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was a great conversation about how we can transform our communities. And I like the parting shot that every one of us can transform our community. It does not need to start big, just start small, start where you are. If it's planting trees, plant trees. Whatever you can do, if it's taking somebody to school, take somebody to school. Whatever you can do at your level. We don't need to deal with the whole world. We just need to deal with the sphere that God has given us. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. Until next week, where we have another great conversation. The Lord cause the light of his countenance shine upon you and give you peace on every side. Amen.
Amen.
And amen.